How is it going, friends? Today we're going to try something a little bit different. I've been incredibly busy and I'm trying to make more videos for everybody, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to ride and talk at the same time. But before we even get to moving to the next property, I need to talk to you about a question that I received in my DMs. So the question reads as follows. I bought a home that was built in the 1960s. It has a septic tank. I was told I am on city sewage. I have paid 8 years for city sewage. Friday, I woke up to sewage in my bathtub. This is the second or third time. I am 76 and I was quoted $4,800 for a septic repair or more, or $12,000 to be hooked up to city sewage. Now, what do we do? This is a question I get asked a lot, and it really kind of comes down to your specific judgment. Unfortunately, everybody's risk tolerances are a little bit different. So my risk tolerances will be different from your risk tolerances versus everybody else who watches this video. So the caveat to all of this is going to be take what I say with a grain of salt, do a little bit more homework, always get at least 3 quotes, and then take your best financial choice that you think would help you in your particular situation. Now, I am not 76. I'm in my early 30s. So I have a slightly different threshold of risk because we're in a different time period in our age range. So where I would go is going to be different from you. Now, we need to discuss a little bit about what happens whenever you're overpaying for sewer, because I just had a client of mine in a very similar circumstance. But let's go ahead, get on the road and get this conversation rolling. What do you think? So the client that I had recently with a similar situation, they live in a small town where the city maintains both the public sewer and the public water. Now, they purchased this home in 2019. Unfortunately, they didn't know that they were on a septic system until they had a problem. Much like you, I'm sure, your problem wasn't noticed until you had things happening in your bathtub. And when you investigate to figure out what's going on, that's usually where you find out that you actually have a septic system. So this particular homeowner, what happened was they had a backup just like you. And they sent a snake down the line, found the tank, called the septic guy. Septic guy got them squared away. What had happened was the outlet baffle, which we've talked about in the past, fell off, and unfortunately a clog occurred. So they had it all dug up, had the septic guy come out. Septic guy sucked everything out, got it snaked out, got them put back in business, and then they were good to go. Now, he had also been paying sewer for a long time. And because he had been paying his sewer for a long time, he felt that he was entitled to some kind of compensation for products and services that were not received. So what ended up happening was he reached out to the city and said, hey, you guys have been overcharging me for this amount of years. I feel that I'm due some compensation. What they ended up doing was once they figured out that he was on septic system, not public sewer, they actually cut him a check for a rebate. And you might be able to do the same thing in your circumstance. You might be able to get the city to come up with some kind of rebate to at least pay you back for the overages, especially for 8 years. That's a long time to be paying for something that you're not receiving. The particular client that I had, what he ended up doing was he decided he was going to keep the septic system and he was just going to let it kind of ride out that way. You probably have a similar circumstance, but unfortunately, you're not going to really know until you get started, which is probably why your septic guy said it's going to start at this price and could go up. What I would encourage you to consider doing before you make any decisions, get a second or third septic guy to evaluate what's going on. Ask them to give you a detailed proposal of best case and worst case situations. So, okay, let's just say you have a similar problem like my client where the baffle fell off and they had a clog. Okay, well, no problem. They just would pay for the excavator to come dig up the outlet side of the tank and then run the jetter and the snake through the line, clean everything up. So that way they can make sure that everything is working and doing what it's supposed to do. You might be in a similar situation where you might just have to get it snaked out. But I would ask the guy to give you a detailed quote and proposal of what best case is going to look like. Now, worst case, you might be looking at a whole new septic system drain field. In our area, I don't know what state you're in, but in our area, our absorption systems, drain fields, are pretty expensive. So you could be very easily looking at a system that costs another $20,000. So that would make your $12,000 hookup look a lot better and preferential. Generally speaking, you also want to take into mind how big is your lot and how old is the house. So we know the house is from the 60s. Generally, in our area, a system from the 60s, it'd be expected that it probably is working on its last leg right now, and it's probably about to fail, or it is actively failing. If your system's actively failing, you're going to be in a little bit more of a pickle. And the reason why is most septic systems are only really designed, at least in our area, to work for about 30 to 40 years. 1960s, you've exceeded the expected use of your system. Now, that's not to mean that your system has not been replaced at some point. Like, for example, let's say your system was replaced in 2000. The three most common defects I find on a system from the 90s and 2000s is baffles missing, distribution box collapses or obstructions, or pipe issues. So you could have a variety of problems going on, but if it depends on how old your system is. Now, once you get these additional quotes and these additional proposals, it should help you get a little bit better idea of exactly what you're going to be working with. And I would ask your local supply house for recommendations. What do I mean by this? Well, call up your local plumbing supply home. Over here, we got a place called Northeastern. You can call up Northeastern and say, hey, I've got a septic problem, I'm a homeowner. Who are people that come in regularly that you see that you think might be helpful? They might be able to help you out with a preferred list of vendors. You know, if that vendor's coming in every single day over and over and over and over, that means they're probably busy and they probably know what they're doing. So you might be able to get a better recommendation from that route. Next area of concern we have to think about is size. The size of the lot is very important when it comes to a septic system. If you're in the 1960s, you could potentially have a smaller lot, and a smaller lot limits the amount of available space you have to work with. When it comes to a septic system, not only do you have to have good soil, but you have to have room to put the system in. So let's say, for example, you have a 0.5 acre lot. If you're on a well, at least in our state, you need to be 100 foot away from the septic. If your well is in a really bad spot, you might be limited in where your septic system can go. Limitations, complications, bad soil, all of those extra things can make your septic system installation cost more because you have to work harder to put it in. The more creative you end up getting when it comes to a septic system, the more expensive it ends up being inherently. So what that means is, if you get your additional quotes and proposals, you'll have a better idea of exactly kind of roughly where you're going to end up being in this repair. It could easily get it more expensive than $12,000, but I don't know your situation. There's too many variables. So unfortunately, you're going to have one of the local contractors help you out. Always get additional proposals. I can't stress that enough. The one guy that you're talking to might not be the best fit for what you got going on. If it was me, probably what I would end up doing is I would probably connect to public sewer. The reason why, it depends, but I would probably lean towards public sewer. $12,000 is a pretty good price for a connection point, so it depends on what's wrong with your septic system, because again, a full septic system can be about 15 to 20 grand. So if I have to replace my drain fields and public sewer is cheaper, I'm going on public sewer. If public sewer is not an option, obviously you're going to stick with drain fields. Again, everybody's risk tolerances is a little bit different. What I would be accepting as a risk is probably maybe something you wouldn't. And what you may accept as a risk is probably something that I would. Everybody's financial situation is different. Again, make sure you look into whatever your options are and the particular contractors that might be able to help you out in your particular certain situation. They'll know what resources exist to help you out. In our state, there are some resources designed to help out homeowners with older systems that are failing. There are some systems and projects out there to help out lower income people or people who may not be able to float that bill, because a lot of times they're going to want all that money up front. So either A, you're financing it, or B, you're going to have some kind of payment plan with the company. Maybe you get like a third up front, a third halfway through, depending on how long it takes for the project to be completed. I would look into contacting your local health department. They probably will have some resources or some information to help you out. If you go to wherever your county's called, their health department website should have resources, or reach out directly to them and just talk to whoever the front desk person is. and that person might be able to help you. The government has things out there. You just have to ask and look to see what's available for you. You might qualify for some things, you might not qualify for other things, and that's okay. But again, it comes down to your particular personal financial risks and what you're able to do. Maybe you're not able to float $12,000. If the quote to fix the septic is cheaper at $5,000, maybe I would do the $5,000. It just kind of depends on what you got going on. It's kind of a long-winded, rambly way of answering your question, but I hope that this was helpful in some way for you. I'm sorry to hear that you're going through a little bit of a problem with your sewer system. I know it's disgusting. I know it's not fun. I know it's not pleasant. And worst of all, it's expensive. Nobody wants to be in that situation. And I hope that whatever direction you end up going, you can find an easy, good way out of it without getting too far behind on whatever your financial plans are, especially this time of year. Good luck to you. Hopefully it helps. I mean, feel free to reach out and let me know in the meantime what you ended up doing, and maybe in a couple months let me know how this project ended up for you. But this is a reminder that if you guys who are watching have any questions, I do try to answer them whenever they come through. Even the complicated ones, I will try my best to get to. Unfortunately, I can't see every comment that comes through. There's a weird thing that YouTube does where sometimes it won't show me when somebody messages me or when they send me a comment. But I still try to read through them. So with that being said, leave a comment. Ask me your questions. Share your story. Maybe your story can help out somebody who's going through a similar situation. Anywho, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and hopefully you have some fun plans coming up for this upcoming holiday. Until next time, guys. See you.